Good evening, folks. It's Friday night. And tonight, we're going to talk about, because I promised to do this, so I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I've made notes. Friday night rant, we're going to talk about black liquor. Black. This is black liquor. It's licorice liquor. I'm going to try it. And we're going to talk about is speech violence, was January 6th a military coup? Are the Jehovah's Witnesses, what's the word I'm looking for here? Totalitarian? What else? Is the vaccine, is the mask mandate a dictatorship? Can a business be undemocratic? It's my favorite subject. It's rhetoric. It's language. I'm a writer. This is what I do. And when I read a paper, I read comments under a newspaper article, and I'm thinking, you fucking bastards. You are twisting this language around to serve you instead of what you really are talking about, instead of the truth. And this, they do that on the right, they do it on the left, they do that. Everyone does it. We all do it. But I hate it. And I call it synonym-hopping, which I will tell you what that is, synonym-hopping. But first, this is a store. This is a liquor store, a Danish liquor store that opened up. It's a chain. Opened up in Berlin last week, and I said, "Oh my God, this is licorice." And all they do is sell licorice, but they sell a certain kind of licorice. It's like licorice candies, pralines covered with chocolate, with licorice flavored chocolate. And this is what it looks like. It's this is licorice, strawberry and cream licorice. So I went down there and I bought a couple. Spent too much money buying, to find out what it's like. I haven't even opened this yet. And so this is what it looks like. These are little pralines. They're like chocolate flavored chocolate covered little licorice things. And this one is strawberry and cream. This one is salt and caramel, which I've tried. This is really good. Except that it's not, I don't know. You got to ask yourself, is it worth, this little thing cost 10 euros. Was it worth, and because it was the opening week, I got the second one free. So I got two. Is that worth it? I don't know. It's very expensive. And this was even more expensive. But of course, I would give an arm and a leg for this. This is licorice liqueur. They call it root and cocoa. I don't know why. And we're going to try it. Of course, this is this cool Danish design. Oh, it's got this little nozzle here. That would imply that it's not meant to drink straight, but it's meant to mix with something. I wonder what I would mix this with. Well, I'm gonna drink it straight. Look at this. Oh, it's actually more brown than black. It could be blacker. I mean, it's a licorice liqueur. It could be blacker, It's a little bit brown. I don't know. I wonder if this will go good in sparkling wine. Licorice flavored sparkling wine. Would you drink that? I would, but most people wouldn't, I think. Okay, let's try this. This is a root and cocoa from a licorice by. It's called licorice by Bülow. It's a Danish chain. A little bit expensive, but very cute, and they're styled, very stylish, right? Okay. Okay, I get it. Yeah, it's a chocolatey licorice. It's a licorice. The licorice comes through. It's kind of chocolatey, cacao-y, chocolatey. I guess that's cacao. I guess that makes sense. Okay, I'm drinking it. I don't know if this is worth the price. This is kind of expensive for this little bottle. And I'm sure I'm not supposed to be drinking it like this. I'm just positive about that. Okay. Okay, no, I like it. I like it. You know, I never licorice liqueur, black. I like it because it's black. First of all, it's black liquid. It's so perverse, you know. And then, and I didn't know it even existed until a couple of years ago at my favorite bar. My favorite bartender, Angelique, at my favorite bar here in Trinidad, called Now Mandrai. We were, you know, it was late, and I think it was drinking with Klaus, and you know, we were paid, and she said, "Here, Eric, I got something for you." She took out this black bottle and poured it in, and it was a thick, sweet licorice liqueur. It's like the best thing I've ever tasted. And I think, no, I got to tell you, I think it was better than this. I think it was better than this. Is a little bit too artisanal. You know, this Danish guy is an artist, you know, a foodie, you know, craft licorice guy making something more than it has to be. It doesn't have to be this crafted and this, you know, artsy, and neither do these things, frankly. You know, you could have this without the licorice in them. It would be good chocolate. But it's just chocolate, you know, it's not, but that, and I don't know, I don't remember what brand it was, but it was really good. And I haven't had it. I've looked for it since then. I have a couple on my Amazon list, which I'm going to try it at some point. I'll try. I'll order some various bottles on my Amazon list and try those licorice liqueurs until I get the best one. Every once in a while in a store I see a licorice liqueur and it's cheap, so I buy it and I drink it and it's horrible. And I have to pour it out. I've done that with 2 brands of licorice liqueur. I poured it out. That's how. And I don't. You know I drink everything, right? I mean I will drink anything. But that was bad. But this is pretty good. It's not necessary. It's not the necessary licorice liqueur. But it's pretty good. And licorice makes me happy. I like licorice. I like a lot of things. Okay, you know, last week I went on and on about this Jehovah's Witness thing. You know, there was a shooting here in Germany, a mass murder. I think 8 Jehovah's Witnesses were killed by a Jehovah's Witness. He walked into the building, this church building that they have, which is called one guy on the internet informed me that it's called a Kingdom Hall, not a church building, but a Kingdom Hall, which is a, you know, it's still the same thing, but it's this meeting house, and he shot, you know, 8 people. And I complained that the German media immediately started explaining that Jehovah's Witnesses have a church system that is sometimes called totalitarian. And they explained that in the article. They said, you know, but, you know, it's been accused of being a totalitarian system because it's so, you know, rigid, and you have to obey those above you, you know, and it's not democratic, it's totalitarian. And there was even a court case where they said it's totalitarian. It was thrown out of court. It was decided that it was not totalitarian, but it still had to go in the newspaper. Of course, they still have to say it about it. And under the comments I got from which were mostly really interesting and good under this YouTube video last week was. A lot of them, it was important for a lot of people to mention things that Jehovah's Witnesses do that is bad or wrong. And I'm not sure why. You know, they said, well, they shun. You know, there's the system of shunning. Whereas if you leave the church, or if you don't obey the church, the people in the church think, you know, you're dead to me. We don't talk to you anymore, right? And that's shunning. And that's a sign of totalitarianism. And I've heard that a lot about the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I've never heard it about, for example, Orthodox Jews or ultra-Orthodox Jews or Hasidic Jews. No one ever complains about the Hasidic Jews doing that. They practice shunning also. So do the Amish in America. The Amish, a German Swiss sect in America, the Amish practice that. So does the Baha'i. The Baha'i practice shunning. They all practice shunning, but the only religious community that people that talk about that practice shunning and get on their case for practice shunning is the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I wonder why that is. That's actually a rhetorical question. I think I know why that is. It's because it's allowed. It's popular. There are some groups that are popular to punch down at, you know, and it's popular to do that. So you can. It's okay to hate the Jehovah's Witnesses and make fun of the Jehovah's Witnesses. But of course, it's not okay to make fun of the Hasidic Jews, even though, you know, the women have to wear wigs because they can't show their real hair in in public, which is, you could call that misogynist if you wanted to, but you can't do that. And for obvious reasons, of course, you can't do that. But you can do it with the Jehovah's Witnesses. So then you bang on the Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's what pets my fur the wrong way. I was looking for a metaphor there and the wrong one came out. I'm sorry about that. So one of the guys talked, and he had a good argument. One of the guys on YouTube, I didn't write his name down, but on YouTube he had a good argument about why you could call the Jehovah's Witnesses totalitarian, and he says that's a valid argument. And of course, criticizing any religious group, including the Hasidic Jews or the Muslims or the Catholics, is valid. You could do that. You can criticize anyone. You can criticize any political party. That's okay. And you can say that these things are wrong or bad and you don't like them. And you're probably right. I mean, the whole thing that some of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses do, I think, are not good or not healthy, and I would not agree with them. Blood transfusions being high on the list, right? I mean, they're anti-blood transfusions because it says in the Bible, do not drink blood, so do not eat blood. So they interpret that as including blood transfusions, and you can say all that, all you want, but if you want me to take you seriously, you have to say that not only about the Jehovah's Witnesses, but about the other guys too. And let's take a look at the Catholic Church. I have lots of friends who, not lots of friends, but several, here in Germany, if you're in the educated class, a slightly middle or upper educated class, and you love the German school system, you think the German school system is better than anything in your life, in the world, you send your children to a boarding school. And it's mostly a Catholic boarding school because the education is better. Okay, so you send them to the Catholic boarding school and they come home hating the Catholic priests, because the Catholic priests dominate them, manipulate them, do not let them say their opinions. If you doubt the Catholic Church, they will punish you. It's a totalitarian regime, and everyone, all these guys I know that have been to Catholic internats, they call them internat in German, it's a boarding school, have come back really hating and suffering from what they experienced there. Yet, when we talk about things like totalitarian, strict hierarchical religious communities, we don't talk about the Catholic Church. We talk about Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, then if you're going to talk about Jehovah's Witnesses, you should talk about the Catholic Church too. And if you're going to talk about things like, like me, I'm a Mormon. I'm an ex-Mormon. I no longer believe in any kind of God at all, or at least I try not to. So, but if you're going to criticize the Mormon Church for being, for thinking that homosexuality is a sin, then you kind of have to criticize the Catholic Church, because the Mormons, I keep saying we because I still identify as a Mormon, but I'm not. Okay. So, but the Mormons believe the Mormons' belief of homosexuality is exactly the same as the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church and the Mormons both believe that the act of homosexuality is a sin, but not the sexual orientation, or the feeling that you're homosexual, or the attraction that you feel toward the same sex. Only if you act on that is that a sin. That's an actual sin. And they differentiate. And they both do that in the same way. Even today, the Catholic Church, I looked it up just recently, the Catholic Church says homosexuality is a sin. And that's the way it is. And if you're going to talk about it with the Mormon Church or any other church, you got to say the Catholic Church too. You can't give them a free pass. I don't like that. So, but I thought a lot about this word totalitarian, and the problem I have with attaching the word totalitarianism to a religious community like the Jehovah's Witnesses is, first of all, it's unnecessary. You don't have to. You can describe their practices, their distress on obedience and not questioning, not doubting leadership, if that's really true. That's what people say on the outside. I don't know any Jehovah's Witnesses, whether they really do it on the inside. I don't know. So, but from the outside, that's what they say. Okay, so that's the common consensus, and you can criticize that, but you don't have to call it totalitarian. And the reason that we call it totalitarian is because we want to make it bigger than it is. We want to say, just to illustrate how bad this is, Hitler was a totalitarian, and they're doing the same thing. Ooh, so it's like Hitler. But see, what Hitler was doing is not the same thing as what Jehovah's Witnesses were doing. What Hitler was doing was, exterminating, 6 million Jews, trying to rape and destroy the entire world, and pushing forth Germanness as an identity, Hitler's identity politics as a superior race. So the thing of there was a feature of his dictatorship that you could not, question authority. But that was a minor feature, and it was a feature that a lot of different systems have in common, not just totalitarian systems. And so what you're doing, the reason you're calling the Jehovah's Witnesses a totalitarian system is because you feel that instinctively that, if you're saying these guys who of their own free will go to church, they don't have to, they're not forced to, and they go to a church where the church says you are not allowed to doubt and you have to, obey your leadership, that that is maybe bad, but it's their own free will and it doesn't harm anyone. They're not killing Jews. They're just, he's going to church and the leader says, you're supposed to interpret the Bible a certain way and you may have doubts, but you don't say your doubts. So you interpret the Bible the way he wants you to interpret it. That doesn't hurt anyone. We do that all the time. Everyone does that all the time. I do that, with my woman. She says, it's Tuesday, and I say, okay, it's Tuesday. I don't question her. The husband does not question the wife. Is the wife a totalitarian dictator? No, she's just, she's just a woman. She's just, female instinct. Okay, that's my little misogynist aside. As a guy who is in a relationship, we have the leeway of making misogynist asides every once in a while. But so you don't have to equate that with totalitarianism. The reason we do it is because we instinctively know that our arguments are weak. That if Jehovah's Witness wants to be a Jehovah's Witness, it's his own problem, and he doesn't have to be it. And, if he wants to be it, even though if we think it's a bad idea, we all make bad choices. We all do things that are self-defeating. That's his problem. And it's not, it's not a but we want to make it bigger than it is. So in order to try to make it bigger than it is, what we do is we do what I call synonym-hopping. We take something like, unquestioning obedience, and instead of calling it unquestioning obedience, we look for another thing where unquestioning obedience is, and we say, also in totalitarian systems, in political systems, you also have unquestioning obedience. So therefore, it's the same thing. So you're moving from unquestioning obedience in a religious system, and you're moving it over to something that has in common with a political system, and using the word that is used for the political system. So here you have a religious system, and you're saying unquestioning obedience, which is just a matter of faith and religion. All religions, expect you to believe what they tell you. They all do. And then you're kind of with one leg, you're stepping over into the political arena and getting the word for that in the political arena and applying the word from the political arena to the religious arena. But it wasn't a word like totalitarianism was not made for religions. It was made for politics. It's like going, not liking your boss at work and saying, he doesn't listen to me, he's undemocratic. And you say, he's undemocratic. He owns the business. He's the one responsible for the business. You're just an employee, and he's not putting his decisions up for a vote. Therefore, he's undemocratic. You're using a word, undemocratic, from a political arena and applying it to a business arena, which is not made for. It's not made for the business arena, but it's kind of similar to what's happening. And so you say, he's being undemocratic. He's a dictator. And so, he's a dictator. Their boss is a dictator. And so you have all these big words that don't actually apply to the situation. You're using words that do not apply, that are not appropriate, but you get away with it because some aspects of the words are similar. And we do that all the time in all kinds of things. And it's really, it's used, and the reason we do it is to manipulate each other and to lie to each other and to instrumentalize each other, to motivate each other to do things that we probably would not do if we thought it through. It's also the same thing in the political realm. In the political realms all the time. Speech is violence is my favorite thing. So right now, you have a thing in America. It's like a woke, and within the woke arena, you have speech is violence. And so the theory is that if you say something nasty or unkind about another person, or if you even disagree in a major way about it with another person, what you're doing is invalidating him or making him saying that he is wrong. So if you say he is wrong, you're unvalidating him, which means taking away his identity or something, taking away his right to exist in some way. And if you're doing that, you may hurt him. And it's true that words hurt. Words hurt all the time. I've been hurt many times by words. I've been called all kinds of things in my life. I grew up a Mormon. We get hurt all the time. People are always telling us, calling us, making jokes about us, and dragging us through the dirt. I remember when I was a kid, the first real shock I got was one of my literary heroes, Mark Twain, called the Book of Mormon chloroform in print. He did not like that book, and I was so disappointed and insulted. It really hurt me because the Book of Mormon was a part of my identity as a young man, I believed, right? So it's part of my identity, it was part of me, and it hurt me. So that word hurt is correct. Words can hurt. There's a saying, 6 insults may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, they do hurt. They do hurt. And then, but about 5 minutes later, or a couple of days later, I realized, well, I can be hurt and I can, reject and cancel for my own life, Mark Twain, and never read Mark Twain again. Or I can say, hey, he has his opinion, I have my opinion, and he still is a great writer, and not worry about it. And that made click. That clicked in my mind where I said, oh, I don't have to be offended. I don't have to be hurt. It's only a small thing, being hurt. But you can also take this word hurt, and hurt is not only in a spiritual kind of way or in an emotional way. You can be hurt in an emotional way, but you could also be hurt physically. And if you get hurt physically, what is that? What do we call that? We call that violence. That's violence. If you hurt someone physically, if you break his bones physically, that's violence against him. And so here we have a word with two meanings. We have the meaning of being hurt emotionally in some way. Someone insults us, and the word hurt has emotional hurt, and it also has another meaning of physical hurt. And so we're just kind of shifting over, kind of saying, well, it's kind of the same thing. We're saying a word that is applicable in one way, an emotional way, and we're saying, yeah, but hurt is violence. It's the same thing, because hurt is always physical, right? And so it's violence. But of course, that's not true. That's synonym hopping. You're going from meaning to meaning within a word, and then one meaning applies, but it's the same word, and the same word has another meaning. So you're saying, well, therefore the other meaning also applies, and you're saying speech is violence. So you're equating your way A, B, C, D, and you end up at violence, and you end up that if you say, the Democrats are full of shit, and a Democrat kills himself, you are responsible for that suicide because you use violence against him. Speech is violence. That's a really horrible, stupid rhetorical device. It's used often today, and it's stupid. And I expect, especially on the left, who are supposed to be educated people, I expect them to be able to think this through. And when they can't, I get really disappointed. I get much more disappointed with the left when they can't think this through than with the right. And the right, of course, do the same thing. And here's my example for the right. Here in Germany, there's a party called the AfD. It's Alternative for Deutschland, for Germany, and it's kind of like it's further right than the Republican Party. It's like the extreme right wing of the Republican Party, maybe even closer to like something like the Proud Boys, some kind of fringe group. The difference being that they actually have votes and voters, and they are in Parliament. They can't do much in Parliament because they're small and no one will work with them, so they're useless. But they are in Parliament. People do vote them into Parliament. Proud Boys, we don't vote into Parliament, although we do vote the extreme Republicans into the extreme right-wing Republicans into Parliament. Okay, but anyway, so the AfD is this extreme group, right? And there's a guy, is Hocker, and he is up in court now, or recently, or will be, for calling migrants coming in, meaning migrants. When he says migrants, he doesn't mean people like me with white skin, and I migrated from America. He means people who migrate from Africa with black skin, right? So that's what he's saying with migrants. And he's saying, and there was some kind of some kind of a crime. Two Somali guys killed another Somali guy or something, and he commented on it, and he said the invaders are killing each other, or the invaders are killing the Germans or something. I don't know I forget who the victim was, whether the victim was a white guy or a black guy. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is he called them invaders. The invaders, the migrants, he equated with invaders, and some guy, took him to court, sued him for using that word. He says that's a violent word. It's a word that is that encourages violence against migrants, and he will lose the case in court. It's not a word that encourages violence against migrants. It's nonsense, but it's not a true word. But the reason, and this word calling them invaders, and this is, I think they've used also this in England, maybe also in America for the great, this huge wave of migration from Africa, starting in, like, I guess it was 2015. They call it invasion, which it's not. An invasion is an intentional military attack on a state in order to replace the state, take over the state. What was happening here is people were coming in masses, in masses, and coming to live here. But they weren't trying to take over the state, and they were not organized in any kind of military. They came and asked to be let in, basically. That's not an invasion. But the thing that the mass migration or high migration or whatever you want to call it has in common with invasion is that there are a lot of people. And so it's, mass migration, a lot of people. Invasion, a lot of people. So it's okay to use this word. And now we're characterizing it as an invasion. And that implies that they're taking over the state, which of course is nonsense, and that's synonym-hopping. And that's the same thing that the Democrats and the media has done with the January 6 riots. They started calling it at the beginning a coup, but then they realized it was not a coup. There was no attempt to take over government, and there was no organization, and there was no, it was just a couple of hundred guys, being rowdy, basically. And then they went from there to, I think there was another word, and then they landed at, so then they ended up at sedition. They went from military coup, it was obviously not a military coup, and they ended up at, maybe another word in between, they ended up at sedition. And the word sedition is a very vague word. It's like the younger brother to treason. And it's more than subversion. So it implies some kind of overt act to disrupt government. That's not the same as taking over government or anything like that. It's to disrupt government. And specifically, what happened on January 6th was there were, 400, 600 guys or something. Most of them were charged not with sedition, not with military coup, not with anything, not with treason, which has the possible death penalty in the U.S. Treason is punishable potentially by death. No one was charged with treason. No one was charged with trying to do a coup. They were charged in court cases with trespassing. That was basically, most of them were charged with trespassing and vandalism and things like that. 2 or 3 of them were charged and sentenced with and indicted with a sedition, or I think it was called even seditious conspiracy. And the reason for that is they thought that the vote for that was going on in Congress, the final vote, the ratification of the vote of the election to install Biden as president was taking place, was influenced by China, and they wanted to stop it so that the true vote could come in, the true American vote. So that's not the same as replacing one state with another state or taking over government. That's just trying to stop something that they thought was wrong. Okay. And so what they were doing was trying to stop an actual government action, which was this vote. That's bad enough. I mean, that's bad, but there's a big difference between a coup and trying to stop a single government action. And you can, government, that's bad enough. Okay. So, but the thing with sedition is, it's so vague that kind of it can imply something like. Am I recording this? Yeah. Okay. We can imply something like trying to stop a single government action, or you can kind of stretch it and say, well, it's kind of like treason because it's the younger sister of treason. It's sedition can is a lot of things, right? And so the newspapers went with sedition. They said it's sedition, and they said sedition like with a big S and with an exclamation mark. So it sounded like a military coup. It sounded like treason, which it wasn't. Let me be clear. It was bad enough, but it wasn't treason and it wasn't a coup. It was sedition. And that's one of those words that journalists love. And I speak as a journalist. I know how to do these tricks. That's why I know these tricks, because you can use a vague word and imply that the word means B when in fact, technically it means A. So your editor can't say, you're using the wrong word here. That doesn't mean B. Or no, it doesn't mean A. It means B. And you say, well, of course, it's the same word. It means B-A. I mean, I'm using it in the sense of A. And he says, okay, that's okay. But the reader at home says, sedition, that's treason. We're under attack. But it's not true. And that's the thing, you can use just like the extreme right calling migration an invasion, and the left calling a really dastardly and shameful act a riot, trying to imply that it's a coup. It's the same thing. And by the way, that also happened in Germany. And with Germany, they didn't make a big thing out of it. In 2020, about, I think, 600, some people said it was 1,000 people, tried to storm the parliament building, the Reichstag, here in Berlin. And they were Maskengegner. They were anti-maskers. Okay? They didn't like the mask. And they said the mask was a form of dictatorship. If the government demands that we use the mask, for Corona, right? Use the mask. It's a dictatorship, and that's just like. And this is synonym hopping. They went from a law to a law we don't like to a dictatorship, which also makes laws, to the Holocaust, which was the result of one dictatorship happened to be. And so they went from a law or a regulation to use the mask to the Holocaust. And there were people holding up signs and saying mask equals Holocaust. Of course, you don't even have to say, it's brain dead. It's stupid. But it's synonym hopping. It's the same thing that you say when you say, the Jehovah's Witnesses is a totalitarian organization. It's the same thing if you say your boss is undemocratic. It's his business. He has no obligation to be democratic. Democracy is a political system, not a business system. It's the same thing as saying, the mass migration is an invasion. It's the same thing as saying, it was a coup. It was a sedition, a treason, January 6th, or whatever it was, instead of saying what really happened, which is bad enough. I don't understand what this need is to make it worse. It's bad enough as it is. It's shameful as it is. When these 600 to 1,000 guys stormed the Reichstag in 2020, everyone kind of forgot about it quickly. It was not a big political thing, and then the district attorneys started out with charging about 300 of them, and they dropped most of the charges, and they charged a handful of them with trespassing, and that was it. I think maybe also attacking or insulting a police officer, I believe, was something like that. But it was mainly trespassing because it wasn't a coup and it wasn't sedition or anything like that. It was just a bunch of assholes, disrespecting our democracy and disrespecting our government. That's all it was, basically. These guys never had the brains or a plan to take over government. That was not in their little tiny brains at any time. Okay, that's synonym hopping. That's my rant about synonym hop. Okay, I'm sorry about this, and I just hate this because we're just such fools for this. You know, when we fall for it and we spread it around, it's all, the New York Times buys into it. We all buy into it. My intellectual friends, I'm gonna get a couple of woke friends here who are gonna say, "Oh, Eric, you know, it's really bad. You know, it is. For me, it was for me. It will always be a military coup." Well, that's fine, but it wasn't. And you know, you're supposed to be educated. You're supposed to care about words and meaning. You're supposed to think things through and try to, you know, look at the world as it is, the rational world as it really is. And but you're not doing this. You're letting yourself get carried away with some strong emotional outrage high that you're having, and instead of trying to engage with the real world, you know. Well, anyway. Okay, so I've ranted on. Is anyone listening to this? I doubt it. I lost them. I probably lost all you guys at licorice. Anyway, you guys, the licorice is good. I'm going to try. Look, I have this much. I'm going to put this much of a sect in it. I'm going to see what happens. Okay, I'm going to put sparkling wine into it and see if that is excruciatingly disgusting or tasty. Folks, it's the end of the week. I hope you're having a great Friday night. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you had a great and productive week. I hope you have another great productive week next week. I hope you have all the success you need. You fulfill your dreams. If you're not well, please get better. You know, my thoughts are with you, or at least my feelings. You know, we're all trying to make something as good as we can out of this life. Yes, today was a sunny day. I hope tomorrow will be sunny also. Wishing you all the best and all really good, you know, only good things. Let's enjoy this life. It's a beautiful, beautiful life. Good night.